grasp the power of the gospel. The gospel is the one thing in the New Testament other than Jesus himself that is referred to directly as the power of God. That within itself is power. The gospel doesn't contain the power of God or channel the power of God. The gospel is itself the raw, unfiltered power of God for transformation. The core of the gospel is this. J.D. Greear talks about this in his church, and I love it. I think we're going to adopt it. The core of the gospel is 4 words. His life for mine. His life for mine. The gospel is that Jesus came to pay the price and the sin that we could not pay, to give us the life that he had lived so that we might live eternally with him. That's the gospel, his life for mine. A lot of people say the gospel, it's the gospel of Matthew or Mark, or the gospel is just doing things to help people. That's not the gospel. The gospel that Paul is talking about are 4 words, his life for mine. If your gospel doesn't include what we call substitution, that he took your penalty for you and gave you his life, then it isn't the gospel. It's not good news. The 4 words of the gospel are not, I'll try real hard. The 4 words of the gospel are not, I must be good. The gospel is his life for mine. His life for mine. Can you imagine waking up one day when you were in school, walking in to realize, completely surprised by you, it was the final exam in a subject that you were grossly unprepared for? And the sweat rolling down your forehead as you began, and to understand also that everything you had tried to do was worth nothing for the grade. The 100% of the grade was in this test. And so you begin to furiously write down information that you cannot nor do not know. And you end the test and take it up, realizing you have failed it. And just as you're about to turn it in, someone stops you and says, here, give me your test. And he scratches out your name and puts his. It says, here, you take my test. And he scratches out his name and puts you. And he puts your test with his name down and his test with your name down. That is the gospel, his life for mine. He is perfect holiness for my sinfulness. He placed it upon himself. Every other gospel contains no power. You know, old movies, there's a bunch of westerns where they're getting the dynamite ready to blow up the train tracks. And they roll out the thing, and they've got the igniter switch, right? And they push it down, and what happens? Nothing, right? And the comedy is, okay, if I go change it, it's going to blow up in my face, right? Every other gospel we try is powerless. But the power of the gospel that Jesus gives us, just the message itself has the power to transform and change lives. But here's where the illustration kind of breaks down, because dynamite is often used in destruction. Yes, for power, it's a great illustration. But if you use it on something and it blows up, it's not going to be put together. And here's the beauty of the power of the gospel. I call it reverse dynamite. Because what the gospel does is it takes something that's in shambles and you set it off and it blows up and remakes something new and better. You take a person whose life is a mess and you set off the gospel in their life, Jesus giving them the power. And you know what? That life can be transformed and made new. You take a family that's in tatters and you set off some power, not in dynamite to blow it up, you set off power of the gospel. And you know what happens? That family can be made new.